guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do another book review, and it's of Girl on the Run by Abigail Johnson. Didn't mean to like bend the book in half. It's a pretty short one, as you can tell, so I will try to make the review as short as the book was, because sometimes I go over. The quick plot of this is that a young girl makes a dating profile for her overprotective mother, and ends up discovering why they've spent their whole lives moving around is that they are on the run. But she doesn't know what from. Girl on the Run. Hello. So the characters in this are very few. There's Caitlin, who's the main character. There's Caitlin's mom, Melissa, and then there's a guy named Malcolm. Something that I really loved about this book was how quickly the plot line began. Like, the chapters are also really short. I like short chapters, and I like it's a standalone, it's a small book, like all the things that were on my list checked in. By page 11, it's already like into the action. Like it happens very quickly, so I did enjoy that. Because when I first started it, it seemed like very realistic fiction, and that's just not my thing. And I was like, oh, this is so boring. And then page 11, I was like, oh, okay, good, perfect. So it was one of the quickest intros I've read. The descriptors were also like pretty good, even though it's a small book. It's obviously not like Stephen King, because it would be a much longer book if it was Stephen King, but it made it easier to understand the scenes. There's a lot of things about her childhood and how when she looks back, it was quite obvious they've been on the run this whole time, and she explains certain games that her and her mom used to play, and it makes it like, oh, so that's what it would be like to be on the run. Something that I didn't like was similar to how quick the book is. I didn't really get attached to the characters, which it's definitely more of a storyline oriented book, which is fine, but I do usually like a bit of both, and this was just very like, yep, these are the characters and into the action, which was good. It's just like, I didn't feel an attachment to them as I do to some other characters. I rated it 4 out of 5 because there was many twists and turns, but given that it's a shorter book, like I said, I didn't get the character development that I probably would have wanted. But it was a good story overall, and the ending was crazy. Similar books, I always find this a hard topic, but I want to get good at like piecing them together. So similar books, there's a lot of books I've read where people are on the run, but with a big part of this is how close the mother and daughters are. And then also they both have red hair, so immediately I thought of The City of Bones, which is, I mean, one of my favorites, so classic. Clary and Jocelyn and that. Yeah, they reminded me just of the mother-daughter relationship in this book. Also, I think partially is like with a badass mother keeping like her whole life a secret from her daughter because Jocelyn ended up being a shadow hunter, and then Clary had never heard of even like that whole world. So this is kind of similar to that. Like I said, this is a much quicker review, so that's actually all for my non-spoilers. So if you think you are interested in reading it, please click off now. It's by Abigail Johnson. It's Girl on the Run. It's not a very popular book. It might be a little bit hard to find on Goodreads if you're looking for it, so make sure that you put in the author's name. And yeah, I think that that's it. But if you don't think you're gonna read it, stick around. So we're now into the spoiler part.
Spoilers.
The plot begins with Caitlin's mom comes back from another awful date, and Caitlin's like, oh, well, aren't you in luck because I made you a dating profile? And she sets it up, and there's a picture of the two of them together, and Caitlin's mom like freaks out, and she calls somebody and then just hangs up and says, it's too late, they found us. And Caitlin's like, what is going on? And she's never been able to have like social media, like nothing like that. Her mom ends up saying like, no, this is not a joke, grabs a bag, starts throwing some of Caitlin's stuff in it. She grabs her own like go bag from a closet basically, and they just leave. They don't get her in their own car because she knows that that could be tracked. She goes across the street and talks to their neighbor, and I swear, I think she says something about, can I borrow a cup of sugar? They steal his car and immediately get into a car chase. Like they're not even in the car and there's already somebody breaking into their house. So they got in just in the nick of time, and the person ends up following them, and yeah, they get in a car chase, they end up getting away. They end up at a motel a few hours away from where their house is. Caitlin's mom leaves Caitlin there and says that she'll be back in a few days. She gives her like power bars and water bottles and things, and then leaves. And then very quickly the book jumps a week and her mom's still not back yet. So Caitlin's starting to get worried, And obviously she got rid of their cell phones, so it's not like she can call her and say, hey, where are you? So one of the things that she does when she's in this room alone is, I guess, a game that she used to play with her mom. Okay, quick, fun. Let's think of how we could escape from this room if we had to. I don't know why she thought that that was like a game that every little kid played. One of the things is there's a tiny little like window in the bathroom. So she unscrews all the screws except for one of them she leaves in just a little bit to keep the window there. She ends up hearing a car door shut in the parking lot, and this is a very remote inn, so she thinks, oh, her mom's back, and she looks at the window and it's a man and he's coming for the unit that she's in. So she goes out the little window and starts running through the woods and knows that she won't be able to stay ahead for very long, so she hides behind a tree or a log or something, and he just walks past her because it's getting dark, doesn't see her, that kind of thing. She heads back to the motel room and the door has been kicked down and everything's ransacked. So clearly she made a good decision. His car is there. So she gets in the car and she's looking through things, and it's really weird. There's like parking tickets and concert stubs like on the roof of the car and things like that. And then she starts hearing noises from the trunk and she's like, oh, maybe it's my mom. And she opens it and it's this guy and he kicks her in the stomach and he's like bound and gagged and all this stuff. So it turns out that that's his car, and this bounty hunter actually like basically stole it from him. That's Malcolm, as I explained earlier. And turns out that he was hired by the bounty hunter to find them because he's really good with computers. And like within 3 minutes of being on the computer, he had found the picture of her and her mom. So the bounty hunter was hired by somebody else to look for Kaitlyn's mom. So supposedly, Kaitlyn's mom, Melissa, is wanted for murder. So the murdered man was a man named Derek, and he has a very rich family, so it was his mom that hired this bounty hunter to find Kaitlyn because she's always been the one that was suspected of murder, and she was wanted, and she ended up escaping. So obviously Kaitlyn denies all this and says that's not true, and she says, you know, my mom is this person, she'd never do anything, like if you Google her, nothing comes up, wouldn't they have her? Of course, she changed her name. So her name's not actually Melissa, it's Tiffany, and I mean, their last names are different too. I don't even want to try to pronounce her actual last name because it's very hard. So they start working together. Kaitlyn ends up basically holding Malcolm hostage along the way, but they start working together because she's like, oh, if you're so good with computers, then you can find my mom. But they don't have the keys to the car, so they're basically on foot. They end up finding out, like I'm leaving out a lot of the plot line because it's not necessarily important to the final story, but along the way they end up finding out that Kaitlyn's real dad is this Derek guy, the guy who was murdered. That's her biological dad. She thought that he had died years ago. She also finds out that Derek had a wife at the time that he was murdered. He was married and she was also pregnant. So that's all very important. Kaitlyn ends up going to the house of Derek's wife, ex-wife, widow, and her daughter's there and she's just barely older than Kaitlyn is, and she has Down syndrome. So what actually happened was after Derek died, the wife agreed to help Kaitlyn's mom. So that was who Kaitlyn's mom called at the beginning and she said, no, like it's too late, they found you. All the money's supposed to go to this granddaughter, the one that has Down syndrome. But Derek's widow knows that if this grandmother is a witch with a B, if she knew that there was someone else, I'm trying to like not have to believe things. If she knew that there was another granddaughter that didn't have Down syndrome, she would want her inheritance to go to that granddaughter. So that's why she worked so hard to keep Kaitlyn and Kaitlyn's mom from being found by the cops, is because she wants them to stay hidden. But I mean, it worked out both ways. But because she's still in contact with Kaitlyn's grandmother, that's how she knew. Like Kaitlyn's grandmother would have called and been like, oh yay, the bounty hunter found them. And so then that's why when Kaitlyn's mom called this wife, the wife was like, no, it's too late, like you need to leave. Also, Kaitlyn finds out that her upcoming birthday is 18, not 17. So she thought that she was a year younger than she was. And then she starts to piece together the whole reason that her mom left her in the motel was to keep her safe. And it's like a day until her birthday. And it's that her mom wants to wait until Kaitlyn's 18 and a legal adult so she can turn herself in. So she ran away and she's not actually like in danger anywhere. It's just that she's hiding until her daughter's 18, and so then she knows that she'll be safe. With Malcolm being so good with computers, he uses Derek's widow's phone that she's been in contact with Kaitlyn's mom, and he uses that and finds Kaitlyn's mom's where she is, and she's hiding in a motel. So they all end up there, And then Kaitlynn's mom is very injured, and so she like pretends almost to faint, and she's like sitting down on the bed and she's bleeding. And so they go into the bathroom and they're like, oh, what are we gonna do? And then she starts to realize like, oh my God, I'm stupid. And she opens the door and her mom's gone. So her mom pretended to be injured because again, all she wants to do is be able to turn herself in once her daughter's safe. That's all she cares about is her daughter being safe. So she starts to think, okay, where's the one place she would go? Derek's old house. So the three of them all end up at Derek's old house where his mom still lives. Kaitlynn's mom ends up talking to Kaitlynn's grandmother, and they're just kind of listening, like Malcolm and Kaitlyn are there, but Kaitlynn's mom doesn't know that they're there. And you find out that when, I don't remember any of their names, when Melissa's mom found out that Derek's wife was pregnant, and she was very heavily pregnant, and Kaitlynn's mom was just barely pregnant, she tried to leave Derek because she was like, no, I don't want to ruin this family, like I'll raise this girl on my own. And he tried to get her to stay, and he grabbed her arm and she like pushed him away, and he fell down the stairs and hit his head and died. So she technically killed him, but like didn't really, like it was definitely accidental, like manslaughter at the very most. So the grandmother's trying to turn them all in. She calls the cops, and she also tries to kill them. That's really fun. The bounty hunter shows up, it gets into this big fight. The fight scene, to be honest, the fight scene was all kind of a blur. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I need to stop doing that because this is the third review so far that I can remember, where at the very end, rather than soaking in all the details, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. And I'm reading it so quick that I don't remember anything. But I do know it all ended up okay, which was very unrealistic because there was many gunshots. I remember Malcolm had been hit in the head multiple times and he was bleeding everywhere, and Kaitlynn's mom had been shot and Malcolm had been shot, and they were both unconscious and bleeding when the cops showed up. But yet somehow they both survived. I don't know. So basically they all survived. I think Kaitlynn's grandmother ended up admitting that none of that actually happened, or there was somehow they ended up getting out of it scot-free, basically. That's the end of the review. Basically, that was the whole thing that happened in this book. I had liked how the end of the book said that the mom was waiting. So it said, as Kaitlynn's world unravels, she begins to trust the guy who brought this nightmare to her door, and to doubt the one person she never thought she would, because her mom has been hiding for a reason. She's been waiting. And I keep thinking like waiting to kill someone else. Like as I'm reading this, I was like, oh, waiting to kill someone else and whatever. But she was waiting until her daughter was of legal age in order to try to protect her. So it kind of put a spin on that and wasn't really what I was expecting. Yeah, so I would say this book really kept me guessing. Again, I would rate it 4 out of 5. This is Girl on the Run by Abigail Johnson. And let me know down in the comments if you think that you would be interested in reading this, even though I gave the whole storyline. Okay, I think that that's it for this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys. That's always what I do. I do like 2 reviews in one day and then I regret it. That's the same face I just did. I don't fucking know if they're